Hi everyone, welcome to episode 9. My guest today is a police officer and BJJ Purple bout, Benoit Gagné.
It's time to high five and fist bump. A Jiu Jitsu podcast for the everyday grappler. Let's talk subs. Let's talk positions. Let's talk dominating the mats. Welcome to the Let's Talk Jiu Jitsu podcast with Raymond Terrence.
My guest today is a BJJ Purple belt and also a police officer in the Montreal, Quebec, Canada area. Benoit Gagné, let's talk jiu-jitsu.
All right.
Thanks for coming in, man.
Hey, no problem.
Great. Hey, so maybe tell us a little bit about your jiu-jitsu, when you started, and how you got into it.
Actually, I started practicing jiu-jitsu when I started police in Cégep in Terrebonne. And then I went to Drummondville, a city that I know nothing about, and the school was there, so I got accepted a month later than all of the other students. And when I started, I was like, hey, maybe I should try some martial arts or something. And a guy in my class was actually giving classes of BJJ grappling, a bit of wrestling, a bit of Templanet, a bit of Gracie. So he's like, hey, why don't you come and try? And I did try, and I really liked it. So it was in the Grappling Saint-Hyacinthe at first. So we had to do like an hour of car to go there and then back to Drummondville. So I started like once a week, then it went up to 2 times a week, and it was great at first, and I never stopped really.
Wow, that's pretty cool. How long have you been a police officer for?
For 5 years.
Okay.
So in the city of Terrebonne, a great city to work in, cool people, a great police station, everybody's cool, and the stations were always behind us, backing us, so it feels great to work all day.
Nice. Do you find there's a lot of action where you're policing, or is it more of a quiet area?
It's not like Montreal, because obviously Montreal is like really a busy city for police officers, but I'm not like really far in the country, so I got the best of both worlds. I've got like in Saint-Anne-des-Plaines, where it's a little bit more like countryside, and there's downtown Terrebonne, where there's bar, a little bit like Montreal. Of course, it's not downtown Montreal, but I kind of get everything. So it's really cool to work in a city where I can touch all kind of stuff.
Nice. Tell me a little bit about your first instructors when you started in jiu-jitsu. Who was your first jiu-jitsu instructor?
My first instructor was named Patrice Larochelle.
Okay.
He was a blue belt in 10th Planet at the time. He got his blue belt from Eddie Bravo. And he was giving classes. I was mostly no-gi. But at one point, he started doing a little bit more gi. So we kind of did a little bit of everything. And then he moved his school in a boxing academy, and then he started to go to Bravado in Longueuil with Sylvain Mulroney. So he was a little bit more of Gracie Umaita then. So we had fun, and we started practically, we're like 5-6 guys. And at the end with the boxing club, we got a little bit higher. And then at what point he just stopped. He like sold the school and let the boxing club handle it.
Okay, nice. I was actually talking about that with Alain Savoie. He's a BJJ brown belt at Brazilian Top Team Canada, and he's opening a BJJ school in Laval, which is a small sector in Montreal, where he is going to start teaching out of a karate school. It's a kung fu school. So we were telling him, we were talking about registrations and does he have any students, and he's like, hey, I'm starting from scratch, like hopefully I'll get some people. And I was like, don't worry, give it a little bit of time. These kung fu guys will realize that their kung fu is probably worth nothing, and they're going to see the jiu-jitsu and what's going on. They'll probably transition over. But kind of similar to what you were saying, that there's a lot of guys that are starting jiu-jitsu schools inside of other martial arts schools, with different styles, whether it be karate or kung fu or whatnot. And I think there is some success to be had there to start gaining some reputation and showing people in other styles that, hey, this is what we do, this is what jiu-jitsu is. And I think a lot of people do transition over time once they see what it really is compared to what they're doing now. It's a little bit of a reality check. So yeah, definitely, I can understand how, sometimes it's hard too, you're going to a school and you're learning one style and you commit so many years to it. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, what's that guy doing? And why is it working so well? Like, couldn't I just kick him in the face? So I guess you come from a school where something similar, where a guy just jumped in and was like, hey, I know jiu-jitsu, you guys are doing this style, so here, let me show you what I do.
Yeah, it was really funny. There was one boxer was always saying, hey, why are you wearing your pajamas to fight? I know I wear a robe coming into the ring, but I get it off. But why are you wearing pajamas? We're always saying, hey, yeah, come try it, just for fun. Just for fun. You'll be able to punch me if you want to, but he never did answer the challenge.
Nice. And then after that, you moved to...
I finished school, obviously, in Drummondville. Okay. So I kind of had a year and a half break because I had to go to the police academy and everything. And I just stopped because it was really far from Terrebonne to go to Saint-Hyacinthe to train. So at one point, my girlfriend wanted to start back karate. And she found that school in Terrebonne, the Sunfuki Karate family. And she went, and she's like, hey, I saw in the picture, there's BJJ there. I'm like, yeah, I could try it, like, just for fun. I ended up there, and it was Phil Siegel from Brazilian Top Team Montreal that was giving classes there once a week. So I was, I'll try it out, and it was really fun. Like, my old coach was like maybe 5'8", 150 pounds, a kind of quicker guy who was really flexible, and his kind of jiu-jitsu with 10 Planet was working perfectly, but it wasn't my kind of jiu-jitsu. I did enjoy it, but I'm a bigger guy. I'm usually walking around 220, so it wasn't quite my style, but I loved it. But with Phil, we're basically doing the same game. With the pressure, we're taking our time. We're never in a hurry, so it clicked right away, and we started. When I started, there was like 3 people that were leaving. So I was the new guy, but I had already a background. And other people came in, and we were like 4 or 5 with the head coach of the karate academy. And from that point, we always like 4 to 5. Then we moved to a brand new dojo where we came actually. And it was pretty nice dojo in the arena. But we're always like 5, 6 guys maybe, but it's all cool guys. We don't have like any MMA fighters we don't have the next George St. Pierre. We're all working the next day, and even if I really like jiu-jitsu, I know I'm not gonna make a career out of it or any money. So I kind of took over the BJJ department because he's the karate and master. We call him Xian. He already has like a ton of his plate because he's living out of his karate school. So I kind of helped him with the promotion, and I set it up the Facebook page for the BTT Terrebonne and everything. So I'm not getting any money, but I'm doing for fun, and I'm trying to recruit like new players. And actually, in the last, let's say, 6 months, we got like 4 or 5 new guys. Some of them stayed, some of them left, but at least we're having more players to have fun with.
That's good. You just have to keep promoting it. You know, the more you promote it and the more, you know, exposure you have, especially being inside of a large karate school. I mean, they have so many people. I went and visited there a couple months ago, like you were saying, and so many kids and a lot of adults, you know, tons of adults that are actually practicing karate. You know, they're actually karate practitioners, which you're seeing less and less adults jumping into karate, especially at an older age. But they do have quite a bit of people. I think a lot of people will transition over, and I did see that Sheehan at the time, you know, he'd be looking into the BJJ class, and he was asking questions, and he was standing there and looking. So, you know, you could tell that he appreciates the sport, which is really cool, and he can help you promote it at the same time. That's pretty neat too. I remember when I went, does that guy that was training there still have a hernia?
Yeah, actually, it's a kidney stone.
It's a kidney stone.
Yeah, he still has it, and we're still making like a bit of fun of him because we're like, hey, we're just gonna kick it once, and he's gonna come right up, pop. But he's still there.
That was hilarious when I went, and the guy told me he had a kidney stone, and he was still training. That's ridiculous because people go in and it'll be like, oh, my toe hurts, I'm not gonna spar today, or oh, like I'm not gonna go to jiu-jitsu because like my elbow or so whatever. This guy is going to jiu-jitsu with a full-on kidney stone in pain, and I think it's been like months, right? That he's had
about
it?
6 months now.
That's crazy.
First of all, Fred, when he started jiu-jitsu, he knew anything about like martial arts. None. His daughters were starting karate, and he's like, hey, I want to go too, so I'll start jiu-jitsu. It looks more relaxed. And I remember I could just put my finger on the stroller. He was like, oh. And we're like, he's never gonna stay. But he persevered, and he's still there today, and he's way better than he used to be. And still today, like you said, he's got that kidney stone, but he's coming, he's doing the techniques. Sometimes even try to roll once with the lighter guys, but he's still trying and going strong.
That's
so
crazy. Wait until that kidney stone is gone. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with,
yeah,
right?
when he's going to come back 100%, it's going to be havoc.
Well, that's good. Yeah, definitely. You were talking about your instructor down there, Professor Phil Siegel. He's a big guy. I rode with him last night. He teaches on Thursday nights in the West Island, and he's a beast. He's very large, and it's interesting what you were saying, how you transition from a instructor who's a little smaller, in stature, a little shorter, doesn't weigh as much, to a guy who's teaching you who's I'm not going to give a number out because then he's going to get mad and he's going to think I call him fat.
I usually say 280.
280.
Yeah. I'm like, you weigh 280 for sure. He's like, nah.
No, he's a big guy. But do you find, so I guess you got quite a bit of experience with a guy who's, a little shorter and doesn't weigh as much, and now you're with Phil. So you kind of got the best of both worlds. You get to train with somebody who's a little smaller, so you get to adapt yourself to that. But now you got to manage, a black belt who's quite larger, and his skill level is quite high. Do you find yourself adapting well? Being a bigger guy, I guess you're taking a lot of things from him.
Yeah, actually, I adapting pretty well because with the no gi, with the quicker guy, it was hard because with the gi, you can just pin him down and like get a second or two to just think or just catch your breath a bit. But with Phil, he's like teaching me how to put weight. I know he's big, but even if you're not that heavy, you can put a weight in a way that you'll feel like way heavier. And Phil, like I always say, you weigh 280, but when he puts weight on your chin, you're like, man, he's gonna crush. I won't be able to talk. And it happened once, my mouth just popped, and I was like, oh shit, and I wasn't able to speak like for 2 days straight. But I still went back. But he puts weight in a way that even if he was weighing 120 pounds, it'd still be heavy.
Yeah, it's crazy. People that have that style. I mean, we have that too with Cascal. He's a small guy and he doesn't weigh that much, but when he puts pressure on you, it feels like 10 times what he weighs. And Professor Phil's exactly like that too. I think there's definitely a huge benefit in that, especially being maybe somebody who weighs 180 or 185. If you could put that pressure down, that makes you feel so much heavier. It's so unpleasant. And I don't wear a mouth guard when I roll, and even when I compete, I've never felt comfortable with it, and I haven't had any like major like chipping of the teeth or this and that. So knock on wood, everything's still good. But definitely when they start pressing down on your face, and because I don't wear a mouth guard, what will happen sometimes is I'll bite my tongue, and then I can't talk for like 4 days, and I want to do a podcast, but I'm like, I can't even speak. I can't have a normal conversation. But I think that's one thing that makes these guys stand out, is that pressure passing. From your knees, driving your shoulder into the person's face or into a sternum, or using your head. It's much different than when a lot of schools are teaching, at least here locally in Montreal. A lot of it is a lot of loose passing, but because we have so many huge guys, it's adapting well to the people that are joining. And you'd think, because there's a lot of big black belts and obviously a lot of big students also, but that most of the students would be big and large, but that's not the case. There's a lot of smaller students, but that are pressure passing just as well because they're learning from these bigger guys. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you said obviously you're a police officer. So my question is, how are you adapting your jiu-jitsu to your day-to-day? Because you wrote me an email and you were like, jiu-jitsu is not relatable to being a police officer at all, and that is super surprising to me, and I want to pick your brain on that.
It's actually the worst martial art you can learn, I think, because the first thing they're teaching you when you're learning how to fight as a police officer is keep your distance, because you have obviously your belt. You're like Batman. You got a gun, you got a pepper spray, you got your stick, you got plenty of things around your waist that you don't want anybody else but you to touch. So they're always telling you, hey, get away. It's like the distance between you and the other guy should be your arm, his arm, and a ticket. So it's like that distance.
Cool.
Always stay far, so in case he's got a knife or anything. But that's why jiu-jitsu is like really the worst. But the funny thing is, at the École Nationale de Police du Québec, I'm sorry for the French version, but
the Quebec school,
where you learn to be a police officer, actually you learn how to like get out of mount. If the other person ended up on you, what do you do? And they're like, yeah, just punch him in the balls. Okay, but if I'm not able to reach his ball, no, just do something. And I remember when the the teacher was there, and everybody was like, "Hey, I'm punching," and they're yelling, "I'm punching him in the balls," and like I was on top of another girl, and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, you want to punch me? Go ahead, I don't mind. Punch me in the nuts if you can." And she was like, "I'm not able to." And then she was looking at the teacher, "What do I do?" And she was like, "Just try harder."
Oh, no.
Okay. And when we reversed the role, they gave me a bigger guy. I'm like, "Okay, you ready?" Yeah, 1, 2, 3, and I just did a full mount escape, and everybody was like, "Whoa, what the fuck happened? What did happen right there?" Like, I just know how to get out of this position because of jiu-jitsu. So, if everything goes well, I'll never use jiu-jitsu. But if everything goes really bad and ended up like hand-to-hand combat and really close, I don't mind. It happened a couple of times. And I'm really comfortable fighting anyone.
So if you have to subdue someone and pin them to the ground, are you doing any techniques that you're learning in jiu-jitsu, like putting his hand behind his back, or because we all watch videos on YouTube and things that go up, but it's mostly in the States that we're seeing things like that. Is it something that you would find useful if you need to take someone down to the ground and then pin an arm or pin a leg? Would you use anything jiu-jitsu related?
Actually, I do. But it's because I do it. Not a lot of people are doing it. But usually people are doing judo. They're really good because we want to take somebody down. I played football, so I don't mind just tackling. That's what most cops do because it's the easier version. You just grab him and try to push him as hard as you can on the ground. It works because usually we're in better shape or we're not intoxicated, which is a big part of the job. So it helps a lot. But usually, I remember a couple of incidents that happened, and I did basically a 2-on-1 on the guy. My partner was choking him, like a rear naked choke, but the police version. And the guy was like trying to kick me, so he had like kind of a butterfly guard. So I was like, oh, I need to flip on his stomach because we want to put his hand on his back and put the cuffs in. So I just basically did a 2-on-1. I escaped his butterfly guard and I started doing wrestling control just to flip him over.
Wow.
It was funny because my sergeant was outside, and usually the sergeant comes on calls and is like, "Hey guys, if you need anything, just call me." So he was about to say that, and he just heard a lady like yelling like crazy. Like, what the fuck happened? And he wasn't hearing nobody. Like, we were fighting, and then the guy was on drugs, really, really big drugs. And we were fighting. He was naked, obviously, because when you get a call with a naked guy, 99% of the time you're going to fight with him. But, like, I don't know why, but it's always happened. If the guy's naked, you'll end up fighting with him. Always.
That's hilarious. So if you get a call and
the
they say the guy is naked,
there's a naked guy.
You're about to fight.
Is he on drug? Yeah, we're going to fight for sure.
That's funny.
The sergeant was like, "Were you fighting?" "Yeah, we were fighting." And how the fuck did it happen? Well, I was calm. The guy hit me with a broom and I just answered and I did what I had to do. But still, I was so calm that he didn't even hear me or my partner yelling or anything. We just like, it was as bread and butter. Like, boom, I did everything I had to do. It was like real natural because of jiu-jitsu.
Right. So in the academy, you guys learn more judo, right? Because I know at the college here with this John Abbott, I think in the, I don't want to say police academy, but in the course that you take, like your 3 years to become a police officer, I guess, I think they have a judo program, if I'm not mistaken.
I cannot say for John Abbott, but where I was, there was 2 classes over the 3 years program. One was like, we like to call it defense against the dark arts, because it was like, in French, it was défense contre les coups frappés. Okay. So we had to like just learn how to block and just escape. And the second one was more judo related, so we like a little bit more like how to put somebody down or just grab the arm and put it in the back as fast as possible. So it was more of a grappling style judo, and that was it. And it was so funny because the exams, me and my friend, he was a blue belt at the time. I was doing jiu-jitsu for 2 years, and so in all the class, everybody knew that us two and another guy was doing judo. There's no problem there, and they were gonna pass their exam like that. But like little girls who knew nothing about anything were getting excellent grades, and we had like 80%, and it was like, that's not intense enough. I'm like, what the hell?
Because he expected more, I guess, from you guys.
And he was a karate teacher, so
okay.
If you had intensity and were yelling, So for the last exam, what we did, we're like, hey, we're gonna do like a wrestling show. So we were yelling, and we're like, yeah. We had rehearsed like a little program where I would sweep him and then he would sweep me back. But as we were sweeping each other, we're like, whoa, and we're hitting the mat as hard as we can. Like, it was really wrestling. If I could have taken the chair and hit it with him, it would have been even better. But we had like a mount. We escaped everything, but it was just for the show.
And did you get a good mark at the end?
We got like 95.
Okay, that's
just
good.
because we were yelling and like pretending to do anything. So it was funny. But what you learn in school is really the base of it. If it were only for me, even what you learn at the police academy is not enough.
Right. That's what most police officers are saying. We don't get enough of that hands-on combat training. And I found out too, so we have, I come across a few police officers, within different jiu-jitsu schools. And there's one that I remember just recently, he came in and he did a trial. And he was saying that, so he said two things, one of them we can get into later, but the main one was that the police department does not pay for any classes you would take that would help you in your day-to-day work as a police officer. If you wanted to take, example, your jiu-jitsu classes, or you wanted to take a self-defense class to learn specific training for your job, being a police officer, that they don't cover anything for that. Like companies would cover, like example, I have a daytime job. I work Monday to Friday and 9 to 5. We're an international IT company, and they'll pay for a portion of your gym membership, and I think it's like up to $80 a month for your gym membership, which is pretty cool because that's $80 of my jiu-jitsu registration every month, or my fee that I pay. It pays for 3/4 of my monthly payment to the jiu-jitsu. Whereas you're a police officer, you're putting your life on the line, and they won't even cover that. I find that odd, very odd, but it's common.
Yeah, in where I work, they don't pay for anything. But we had to have formation each year. We have to have a certain amount, and usually we got 3 days of formation. The first one is usually CPR mixed with something that usually like school shooting, or we try to work that part that normally we never do, but we have to still practice it just to make sure if it happens, we want to be ready. There's usually a day that's we're sitting at a table talking about laws or new laws or something. Like now with the cannabis situation, we're having tons of information about that. And when they have time to, there's a day where either we're going to a dojo to just review basics like cuffing techniques and anything, but still it's 1 day a year. And you have to have like the shooting day where you go to the shooting range and practice and do your qualification to be able to shoot again the next year. So that's all the formation, because there's not that much money into that department. Mm-hmm. So there's other formation, the speeding one, so
it's just a lack of funding, probably, right? It's a lack of funds.
Probably,
of money, yeah. Okay.
Because a lot of people are asking like the teacher, hey, could we do that more often? Yeah, we could, but it would be on our own time. And I would like do it freely. I don't mind, but it'd be on our own time all the time.
That's obviously interesting. So here in Montreal, weed is now legal.
Yep.
Right? As of, I'm trying to remember what date. Was it
October 17th?
October 17th. So you can't smoke it just anywhere, but it is illegal and you can consume it and this and that. I'm curious. It really has nothing to do with jiu-jitsu whatsoever. I'm just kind of picking your brain. Have you guys had any situations, like difficult situations, or you have a hard time adapting to the law, or
actually,
you find it's going smoothly? Because honestly, I walk the streets and I don't find a bunch of zombies like super stoned out, like causing trouble.
If you looked at the media, they were like that big Armageddon coming in. Oh my God, pot's legal. What are we gonna do? I don't see any difference, to be frankly honest. There's no difference. People who were smoking before still smoke, but instead of buying it from the dealer, which they probably still do because the stores are always out of stock and everything.
Probably cheaper too, right?
And probably cheaper, but they still smoke. Maybe like Uncle Joe, I used to do it in the 70s, I'll try it back now, but that doesn't cause as much problem as we thought it would. And there's no the only thing that we're experiencing is usually, let's say I pull you over, I see some marijuana, I'm like, oh, you're under arrest. I had the authority to search the whole car and you. And usually that's how you found out other drugs or weapons, or that was like the opening door for intervention.
For everything else, right?
So now I see marijuana, I'm like, yeah, are you driving high? No. Okay, you have the right to have a little bit. So I'm not allowed to search a whole car on you. So it's kind of closing doors. And I've been a cop for only 5 years. So my mentality, yeah, drugs are bad, but I can deal with it. But let's say older cops, it's been 20 years that drugs are bad and marijuana is
that
illegal.
transition must be
that
really
transition
hard.
is harder
yeah.
on them.
Oh, it makes sense.
But
wow, and you find, and if I'm not mistaken, there's a new law that passed too that you can pull someone over for any reason whatsoever now.
But that was already the case. I can pull over anyone for what we call just if I want to make sure you're sober. So I can pull anyone, anywhere, anytime to make sure you're sober or make sure your driver's license are in order. So that's why we're always asking driver's license, immatriculation, and insurance.
But now you don't have to have a reason.
No,
right?
The only thing now we don't have the reason for is the breathalyzer. Before I have to think, hey, maybe that guy's drunk. Maybe I should because of this, that, and those reasons. But now I can just go see you and, hey, pull down your window. Yeah, blow in this.
Oh, wow.
Okay, you're good to go. I don't think we'll do that more because it's legal, but it's mostly for roadblocks.
Right, and if you have a suspicion of something, you
exactly.
do it, yeah.
Usually we had to have suspicions, but why would I do it if I'm like 100% sure you're okay to drive? Why would I go? So probably most cops will just stay with the suspicion basis.
Right. I guess a lot of cops have to find new spots to give people tickets. They can't stand out of jiu-jitsu schools waiting for all the stoners to come out anymore.
Yeah. But it wasn't the case in Terrebonne, so...
There you go. Nice. Actually, the police officer that came and did that trial recently, he was telling me that that there are less and less police officers, at least here in Montreal, with the millennials. There are less millennials going into the program to become police officers because they were saying the schooling, the money isn't there. The money isn't there when you start, and then it comes over time, obviously. The schedule, the shifts, that they're really swaying towards other types of jobs and other types of careers, that there are less and less people going into law enforcement. Do you find that's the case?
I think it is, because if you want to get into the cégep, the first school you have to do, there is already like tons of people who want to go in, but not that many places. So it's harder to get in school first. When you go out of school, you have to go to police academy. There's like tons of people wanted to go in, but they're only taking, let's say, 1,000 people a year. So there's another roadblock. And then afterwards, if you want to get a job, it's really hard. I was lucky enough to come out of a police academy in September of a year and be accepted in March the next year. So it was like really
6
quick.
months.
6 months, and it was considered
that's
really
fast.
quick. That's
Okay.
fast.
Wow.
So it's harder to get a job because we are now in a time space where it's harder to get a job. But at one point, in let's say 10 years back, you were in police academy, and like some recruiters were like, hey, do you have a job when you go out? No. Hey, come work with us. Okay, where do I sign? And you had a job like that. It was that easy. But now it's really, really, really harder. There's like tons of CVs. Like they're practically just picking out of a bucket and say, hey, you get an interview. And hey, you get an interview, and that's it, because there's too much.
So I guess the millennials know this. They have access to information, obviously. So for them, I don't want to go through all that heartache and this and that, and it's going to take me forever to find a job. If they already have a huge bank of people looking to be police officers, I could see where that would discourage people from going into it.
Especially the police academy is really expensive, like $8,000, and it was $8,000 when I went, so it's probably now closer to $9,000. But still, you go there, you do the police academy. It's a fun experience, but
because they provide you housing and all that stuff.
Yeah, they provide you housing, house. You stay there for 15 weeks. You arrive on Sunday night. You leave at Friday night, and it's really fun because you're doing police stuff for the first time. You went to college where they're telling you, hey, it's gonna be like this, it's gonna be like that, but that's another step. And but paying $8,000 and say, hey, I paid $8,000. I can be a cop, but I don't get a job. I'll go as a security officer. It costs you a lot of money just to be something you didn't want to be at first.
And make crap money too as a security guard and stuff like this.
Exactly.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any money. Huh. And so, in regards to your jiu-jitsu, how do you find? So you're a purple belt now. How do you find your jiu-jitsu is evolving now? Do you find that now you're getting into different things? You're starting to look at new techniques. What's the situation now with you when it comes to your day-to-day classes and everything?
But that's what I liked about jiu-jitsu at first, is that everybody can find his game in jiu-jitsu. Like, I used to play football. If you're a big guy in football, you'll play on the line. If you're thin, tall guy, you'll play on defense or receiver, depending. So that's what I like about jiu-jitsu. Like I told you, my first coach was a quicker guy. So I was like, that's not really for me. But when he was teaching some moves, I'm like, oh, that's for me. That's what I can get from out of that class that's going to apply to my game. It wasn't the same thing that my colleagues were doing, but this was I would like to take and brought in. So with Phil, usually it's all stuff that I'd like to brought in. And when you came in to teach us that baseball choke, that's what I do now. And
he told me you won't stop baseball choking.
Yeah. So that's something I really like, because I would like, when I look at my game, I'm like, okay, if I'm in half guard, that position, okay, I'm good with that sweep, and I got usually 2 sweeps or 2 things per position. Okay, half guard, I got those 2. If I'm bottom, if I'm top, I got this and that. So when you came and show us that choke, I'm like, oh, that's a place where, yeah, if somebody's trying to get out of my guard and I
screw up,
oh, I got like an insurance company. Oh, okay, now I can do this.
Yeah.
So it was really fun. So what I'm trying to do when I teach, when I'm the jiu-jitsu, I try to do something I'm not comfortable on. Like with Phil, he's a big guy and he loves to put pressure. I'm usually that guy. So when I roll with him, I always either pull guard, which is usually against my religion. In competition, I never pull guard. But I pull guard and just try to work my way, because I know if I just stay on top, it'll be really easy for me, because that's my game. I like to be on top. I'm like, my base is good, so I'm hard to sweep. And I can basically stay there for 6-7 minutes. I don't mind. But I always try to go on bottom. If I'm with a guy who's like really good on guard, I'm like, okay, I'll just try to get out of his guard, because at our club we're a small amount of people, so there's not a lot of there's not 10 guys like to do guards or 10 guys. So when I go with a specific guy, I know what's his game, and I usually try to go what he's good at just to make him work. And I want to get out of that game, because I feel that if I work always what my strength is, it'll get better, but I'll still be fragile elsewhere. So that way, I'm always trying to practice defense, and that's why I'm usually more of a defensive jiu-jitsu player than an offensive one.
Yeah, and that way at least you'll evolve. And I have to say, there's a lot of people, even at purple belt, that don't realize that. You know what I mean? And I do appreciate, you could tell you're a smart guy and you know what you need to do in your jiu-jitsu to kind of evolve. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, and that's at all levels, So I know this X, Y, and Z, and I'm at here now, and they stay in that little bubble, and every time they leave, they're like, oh, I am experiencing failure, so I'm going back in my bubble where things were really good. But it's when you completely leave and you get smashed and things aren't going well, but you start working it, that eventually it's going to pan out. And I did the exact same thing. I had a super strong top game. All I wanted to be is in top half. If I was in top half, you were done. You were screwed. And it doesn't really matter who it was. If I'm top half, I have enough tools that I feel pretty good. And then I was like, okay, I need a bottom game. I need to start playing bottom half. I need to play guard. I need to figure that out. I figured the top game out pretty well. I mean, I'm not a master at it, but I'm pretty good, because I have the things that I do really well that I've drilled, thousands of times over and over. So I started playing on the bottom, and that was very unpleasant for many, many months, and it wasn't going well. But then I started picking up some little things, and my professor Fred, he's really good with margarita guard and butterflies and stuff like that, and I really started getting interested in that. And so he started fine-tuning my margarita guard, my butterfly, setting up triangles and sweeps from there, and now I cannot leave. Like, when I get on top, I don't even worry about getting on top. If I get there, I'm like, okay, well, I'm good. Like, I know what I have to do because I did it for so long and I'm comfortable there. But now I'm on the bottom and I'm like, I feel great here now. Like, my margarita is good. I got my butterfly. I'll sweep you. I land lots of triangles. There's so many options from there, and I feel good there. So I don't press the top position. So if I get top position, it's a bonus, and it's because my bottom game worked. So I worked on the bottom. I swept you. I ended up on top, and now I know what to do. So definitely that whole getting outside of your comfort zone and starting to grasp little things outside of what you're really good at, especially at Purple, is really, really, really important, because I see it all the time, especially at Purple belts, that people staying in their bubble and not leaving, and they do the same thing day in and day out, and they never learn anything else, and it's really hard to evolve when you do that, especially if you're a really active competitor and you compete literally at every tournament and your goal is to be a world champion, then do those 4 or 5 things over and over and over 1,000 times to become the master at it, so people can't stop you, and then you're going to do really well. But if you're the everyday grappler that you're going to jiu-jitsu a couple times a week, or even if you're committing to more than that, you have to learn everything. You got to learn it all. It's going to take a long time, but touch everything. Don't just touch what you're good at. Touch everything. And I think that's where at Purple Belt, that's what makes it or breaks it. Those that are open to that will do really well, and those that don't, they might stick with jiu-jitsu, but it'll just take them a little longer to get there.
And since I started jiu-jitsu, I wanted to just like learn something to be a better cop. So if I always end up on top half guard, let's say, but I know in the street I'm not gonna always end up on top half guard. Usually I'm on top on the streets too. But if let's say the guy hits me from behind and I fall down, what am I gonna do? I know I'm not gonna go out the first punch, because usually that's the fun thing in the police community. A lot of people never got hit in the face just once, and they're like, oh, but what if it hits me? I'll go down. No, you can get lots of hits without falling down. Of course, if you get a good one, maybe you'll be knocked out a bit. But if you get hit and you fall on the ground, what's gonna happen? So that's why I would like to work bottom, top, like everything I can get my hands on, I'll try it.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I think, especially having a variety of training partners is good too. Do you find that because you don't have, like 30, 40 students in your club, do you find it harder to evolve? Do you find it's taking longer? Or maybe, Professor Phil is kind of feeding you that information due to the lack of, numbers that are there in the club?
With the curriculum, we're really, really good when we come up to Montreal to do the exams. But when new people are coming in, or let's say we got a new guy who's from Forte, he's a really good competitor. Competitor, sorry.
You could tell the guy's French.
Yeah. He's a really good competitor, and it's fun to fight with him because he's new, and I cannot go like easy on him because I don't know what he's gonna do. But with my best friend, I know he's like a top guy too, and he's gonna want to do an armbar. He's an armbar guy. He's gonna do an armbar. We already know. Usually he's trying to choke you, and I'm like, go ahead, choke me. I'm looking at him. I'm not even doing anything because I know he's just
wants
waiting.
The armbar.
He just wants my arm. So I'm like, you're not gonna even come close to finish that choke. So, but with new guys, usually it's a little bit more fun. So that's why everybody's welcome to come. But since we're a small group, and one of our main players got a kidney stone, it's hard to evolve as fast as other schools would do. But on the other hand, when we're getting classes with Phil, it's like a private class all the time. We're 4 or 5 guys, 6. So when you're trying to learn new moves on the sheet, it's really easy because he's there to show you, and he doesn't have to look over 30 or 40 guys at the same time.
Yeah, those smaller classes are gold, and I think a lot of people don't recognize what they have when they end up showing up to class. We'll just say it's snowing, it's crappy weather out, and you're like, I'm going to tough it out, I'm going to go, and there's only 3 people that show up. You basically have a private class with your instructor for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, however long your class is. That's gold. You have to pay $80, $100, $150 for a private, depending on, who you're doing the private with and whatnot. You're basically getting that for your monthly membership fee. So I do appreciate smaller groups with, your instructor, because you're going to get lots of knowledge and he'll be able to fine tune some things. The lack of rolling afterwards is where you kind of, have issues with, because you don't have maybe, 10, 15 guys to roll with every class. But it is gold having, smaller groups and, being able to fine tune the things that you do. I think in smaller clubs, it's good for a certain amount of time. And then you have to kind of step out of the box and be like, hey, well, I'm going to have to go to my affiliate school over there and I'll go roll with those guys. Even if it's like once every month or once every couple months, just to get outside the boat and be like, okay, I'm getting all these technically privates with my instructor. It's going well against the 4 or 5 guys that I'm rolling with every week. Let's see if it actually works on the masses afterwards. Have you started trying to kind of branch out to different BTTs and going to different schools? Or
actually, when I did Abu Dhabi in 2016, I went to the HQ a couple of times just to roll with different people because I wanted to be more in touch with my jiu-jitsu and see what was working, because what's working at Interbonne usually don't really work where I go elsewhere, because I know I'm good at and I know they're weak at that point. So I have to figure out if it really works. I'll try it with other people. So that's why I went to Montreal a lot. And usually we try to go once every 6 months in West Island just to have new training partners, because we're not a big, like I said, a big school, and we all got a job on the next day. So we're not there to be world champion. We're just guys who want to
have fun,
do sports a bit. Yeah. And instead of playing hockey, we choose jiu-jitsu. So that way we're learning something valuable and having fun at the same time. But since we're not competitors at all, for us it's good and it's fun because Phil is a really good coach. And
you get to know the people that really well, right? In a smaller group, you get to know everyone.
And we, like I already said, we don't have any those MMA guys like I'm there to crush and I want to be the best in the world right now. So if I get a choke, I'll do it. If it doesn't work, I'm not gonna just power it out. I'll let it go. I'll try something else. So actually, I remember the only guy who got hurt at our club was one of those big MMA guys that came in and wanted to try out, and he popped his shoulder because it was, I don't know, trying to overpower everyone. It just didn't work at all. But that way, everybody's getting to work the next day, and we're all having fun.
That's good. Yeah, you have to, especially if you have to look at it in a casual way sometimes. You can't take it too seriously, especially if you're not too much of an active competitor. You're going there to have fun. Like you said, you have to go to work the next day. You can't go.
Sometimes you even have to work after class.
There you go. That's horrible. I did that yesterday, actually, and I almost fell asleep at work. It was really rough. You said that you competed in Abu Dhabi in 2016. Tell me a little bit about your experience there, because you went as a blue belt, right?
Yeah, I went as a blue belt. My first coach was, which was Pat. His big competition was that Abu Dhabi. He even cut weight a bit, but he didn't cut weight that much. So I was like, hey, I want to do that. If I ever got to do a competition, it's going to be that one because it's the biggest one we had in Montreal. So I'll do this one. And instead of just going at my normal weight, I'll try to cut weight a bit. And the first thing I didn't know, I was like, hey, I'll aim for 185. And if I don't make it, I'll just register in the category a little bit higher. So I registered at 185, and my coach was like, you cannot go up on a weight class. If you don't make the weight, it doesn't work. I'm like, oh, fuck. So in 6 months, roughly, I lost 50 pounds with a great meal plan and everything. So it was that was the main goal. I lost 50 pounds on the weight day. I was like, I did it. I had to shed some water a bit on the last day. I'll do a jump rope in the lobby of the hotel, but I still managed to do it. And I was like, hey, I already won. If I don't even win a round or anything, it's already a victory for me. I lost 50 pounds and I'm going to do a tournament. So it was incredible. We were 14 guys. A couple of them had buys, so I wasn't one of them. My first fight lasted 5 minutes, the whole 5 minutes. And what happened in the first minute and a half, neither me or the other guy wanted to pull guard.
So you just stood.
So we stood, and it was so I lost so much energy during that fight. And at one point, a guy in the crowd, because my coach wasn't able to coach me that day, and at one point in the crowd, there's someone yelling. I'm like, hey, I think he's trying to yell at me. I'm like, what the hell is happening? I'll go, hey, Ben, yeah. I'm like, what? I think he's trying to coach me. And then I just succeeded in a single leg sweep, which is my number one sweep. from standing. I swept him, got 2 points, and I won 2-0. And like, oh yeah, and I found out the guy, and like, hey, I already seen that guy at an exam in Montreal, so he was probably coaching me. And then my coach went in. Yeah, I asked him if you can help you. Okay, that's
Nice.
good. And then after the second fight, it was against a guy from Gracie Barra. I swept him, but as soon as he touched the floor, he swept me, so it was 2-2. At the end of the round, I succeeded in sweeping him again, so I went 4-2, and for the last 20 seconds, I just hugged him as hard as I could. I got a penalty. I don't even know how it works. I'm like, penalty. I'm like, what the hell's happening? Another penalty. Okay, I don't mind, as long as I'm staying on top, and I won. After that, my third fight, I was already out of strength. I couldn't even hold my water bottle. And I'm going against a guy whose first fight lasted like for 20 seconds.
Okay.
And I don't even know the guy. I've even watched how he fought and anything. I have no clue who he is. So we started, and he probably saw my other fight, because since I lost 50 pounds, I was probably the bigger guy in the weight class. But I tried to push him a bit, just to wrestle him. And he did one of those most beautiful tomonagi I ever seen. And afterwards, he's after the fight, like good fight, he's going to his friend, which is Olivier Aubin-Mercier, and that's how I learned he was a black belt in karate, not in karate, sorry, in judo. And I was like, oh shit, I would have pulled guard if I would have known he was a judo guy. And he did that tomonagi 2-armbar, and I had like the perfect defense for an armbar, and he just yanked it out in a fraction of a second because I was out of strength. I wasn't even able to grip my own arms, so I lost badly. And then I'm like, hey, 2-1, that's really a victory for me.
Plus the 50 pounds.
50 pounds.
Bronze medal, come on.
I won 2 fights. I lost the last one. I feel great. And then my coach coming over, hey, you got another fight. What the hell are you talking about? Yeah, it's for bronze medal. What? I got the bronze medal? Oh my God. So that I had like a little bit more of time to
recuperate
a bit, and I ended up winning by choking the guy with my favorite choke, which is the bow and arrow.
Oh, nice.
And I remember I was choking the guy, and my girlfriend was like all the way across, so I was standing a little bit sideways. So I was like, oh, because my girlfriend I knew was filming the fight, so I was like, oh, I'll just move a bit. So I just sweep and butt scoop just to make sure I was at the right angle, and so I choked him in the bow and arrow.
And did you get a good picture of it?
Yeah, I got a good picture of it, and that's how I won my bronze medal. And like, hey, 3-1, I got a medal. I'm going home as a happy guy. And then my coach, no, you got to do absolute. Are you kidding me? I'm not even able to hold a bottle. How do you want me to fight? He's like, just go. It'll be fun. And my first, the only fight I did at absolute was with a bigger guy who's an MMA fighter who had a professional fight the day before. And he won like by KO in the first round. So I'm like, yeah, I was in shape, so I wanted to cancel, but it went well, so I came here today.
And the guy's all hyped up probably off of his win.
He was all hyped up. He was like so big. So actually he ended up getting a omoplata with a choke, but neither of them was working. But I was not strong enough to do anything, so I was just sitting there laughing. But as I was laughing, he was getting mad, and the more he was getting mad, the worse it was getting. But I was laughing because I couldn't even move. So at one point, you can see me on the tapes, I'm just trying to get the choke in because I'm like, I'm not going to tap for nothing. So I'm helping in getting its choke, so it's funny.
Nice.
But I ended up doing a great day. It was awesome. And it's the only one I did.
Do you want to compete again?
I'd like to compete again. My girlfriend doesn't want to because if I compete at 220, I'm not going to be at my best, I think.
So you'd have to cut a little bit.
Maybe not 185 again, but
195.
195 probably, but still I have to cut weight, and that was the worst part. And with 2 kids, it's hard to get time and the job and everything. So I'll try to do it maybe when it's becoming legal again in Quebec.
And plan it accordingly. I did the same thing. In January I said, because I've been pretty bad when it comes to sugar. Over the years, my mom, I would say, she wasn't the best cook, but she was an amazing baker. So we always had dessert at home. So we'd get through the meal that we had, which was either like spaghetti or chicken, like super basic. But we knew when we were done our meal that there was going to be dessert there. So we always had dessert. So growing up, I had this sweet tooth, but like major sweet tooth. I would eat sugar left, right, and center all the way till, I'm 38 now. So just recently. And, it was getting to the point where my wife was getting worried, and she was like, hey, you really need to cut out the sugar. Like, it's way too much. So I was talking to one of my teammates, Brian Vieira, and he was telling me about this keto diet that he was doing and how he felt super great in the afternoons. He got like this boost of energy, and just he felt so much better. So when I went on my paternity leave when my son was born, this was in November. I took 5 weeks and I started doing some research. I bought some books, went online, and I thought it was a good solution for me based on my goal was to cut out sugar. So I was like, hey, well, it mixes well with what my goal is, so let's give it a try. So lots of meat, lots of fat, cut out all the sugar, no rice, no pasta, no bread. The bread was a little bit hard. My wife's Italian, so we eat a lot of bread and pasta at home, but I cut everything out. And I really wanted to get in the weight division that I was when I was younger, because I've been competing at 195 and the guys are just way too big for me. So I wanted to go back to 181.5. So with this diet, I was 191.2 the first week of January, and now I'm like 183.4. So it's going really, really well. I think it could be going better based on some conversations that I've had with Brian. There, he's like, yeah, you lost a lot, but you should be losing more. So I told him a little bit about what I'm eating during the day, and he was like, oh, like replace that with this. You're taking organic sugar, replace that with stevia and all these little things. So I'm hoping that will help also. But I'm like right on weight. Like I'm perfect. Like I won't need to do a major weight cut. I could take like a Epsom salt bath and like I'll be on weight with my gi and I'm totally good, because I'm going to do the Abu Dhabi in February. That one's 185. So I'm good now. I need to shed 1 pound technically, so by then like I'll be pretty fine. I think competing in your proper weight class is very, very important, because afterwards, even if well or not well, you will question yourself and say, could I have done better if I would have put that effort in to go where I should have been? Yeah. So you'll go down, you said, to 195 probably
if I want to compete again.
How much do you weigh now?
220.
220.
So and I started bad diet on January 1st because I was at 230, 235 depending on. So I was like, that's way too fat. So I wanted to cut a bit. So I started, and I'm already back to 220. So I'll just make sure I stay around that weight.
That's good. Do you guys eat well? I guess you eat well at home.
I try to as much as I can, but I'm a big dessert guy either. Okay. So I try to cut ice cream or anything that's...
It's hard. I'm telling you, for 2 weeks, I honestly thought I was dying. I was getting like these hot flashes. I was shaking. I was like, and I got a cold, like a really, really bad one. And it was really like my body was trying to adapt to what I was like. I just put it through this big shock, and the sugar, it's like cocaine. It's just like I needed it all the time. So, but now I feel great. Like I don't need it. I feel like my energy level is so much better. My meals are pretty like, I want to say bland, or no, not bland, but repetitive, right? There's a lot of keto meals out there, but I mean, it takes a lot of, like, you got to do a extensive, grocery run and whatnot. I'm not ready for that, but just the basic stuff I'm doing. But I find that the energy level is much better due to the fact that there's no more sugar in my diet. And I didn't think it was going to make a big difference, but it's crazy how much it makes a difference. But it's so hard to drop it because sugar is in everything, everything, especially if you love dessert and you're in a routine of doing that after you eat that I need a dessert. It's very, very difficult. But you should try keto. The keto's not bad.
Yeah, I'll try it. I'll take a look.
Take a look. The best thing is to research and stuff. That's what I did. I didn't jump in and be like, okay, well, everyone's talking about it, so that's what I'm going to do. No. Like, I bought books. I went online. I read as much as I could on it, and then determine, will this work for me based on the goals that I have set? And it was, everyone sets goals in January. It lasts a month, and then they just drop it. But I'm really finding that this could definitely be a lifestyle long term, as long as my wife is on board. Because like 2 weeks ago, we have a thing called Mr. Puffs, where it's like Tim Hortons Timbits. And again, Tim Hortons people, Americans are like, what's Tim Hortons? So they're like these little basic like donut bunches, I guess, or like these round donut balls. But this place called Mr. Puff's does it like to the extreme, where you can buy a box of 55 and they put like chocolate or caramel or strawberry on top. So my wife knows that I'm going through this. It was like the first couple of weeks I wasn't feeling super great because I was adapting to it. And she goes and she Uber eats like a 55 box of these. And it's like, how could you not eat one? And I'm dying here, like staring at her eating them. So there's that struggle a little bit because, you know, she's on her maternity leave watching our son. So she's kind of living their life, you know. She's off of work for a year. She gets to hang out at home, eat what she wants and this and that. She can't necessarily work out because she had a cesarean. So she has to get through that first before she can work out again. So she's living the life. And I'm like struggling watching her eat all this stuff. But it tests your like your motivation to want to do things like that. So
it does, big time.
So what's the plan now? So for the next couple months, you just keep training in Terrebonne, and do you have anything planned? Or?
Yeah, I'll keep training Terrebonne, do promotion a bit, try to get as much as new people as I can. Sheehan actually started. He's actually a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
Oh, cool.
But for the last, let's say, year and a half, he didn't train because he's a world champion in karate. He went to the worlds and everything. He even trained with George St. Pierre at one point. And the thing is, he started doing jiu-jitsu again. But since he's giving out the classes, he decided that once every 2 Mondays, he's mixing jiu-jitsu class with the karate people because it's his advanced class. And he thinks that every of his black belts should be at least to a level of a blue belt in
that makes sense.
In BJJ. So that way, on Mondays, we got like 25 new guys to work with. So we're starting from the bottom, but I'm helping him in those class just to bring their jiu-jitsu game a bit higher. And we're having fun. We did it once so far, and next week's going to be another of those class. So we started with a game plan, a little bit more structured than what Brazilian top team is usually. Okay. But
will you work a curriculum type of thing?
Actually, we're using the same curriculum,
nice.
which is from the blue belt. But instead of doing do the curriculum, we're doing jiu-jitsu oriented, not training, I would say, but warm up. Instead of just I do techniques and it'll start that way. So we're doing warm ups. Afterwards, we're doing techniques, but a little bit instead of just following the sequence. Okay, we're going to do that technique, and then afterward, we're going to show the escape, even if it's not on the sheet, because you're going to want to learn how to do the escape. And afterwards, we're doing a part where we're only drilling instead of doing techniques and fighting afterwards. So we've got like classes, 4 steps in the class. So warm up, techniques, drill, and a little bit of
that's pretty
rolling.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. And that's on Mondays?
Yeah, on Mondays.
That's pretty neat. And then you do your Wednesday class
with Phil. And it's always fun with Phil.
Nice. Damn. Cool. Well, for people that want to check Ben out, you can go head to, if you're in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, you want to head to Terrebonne. They've got a school going on there. Super great group of guys. You guys can check them out there. And if you ever see Ben on the street, don't be doing anything illegal. He'll probably arrest you. Or at least if you do it, don't do it in Terrebonne because he's roaming around. Ben, I really appreciate you coming in. Thanks for taking the time. I know you're busy with your job, your kids at home, people have been sick and all that stuff, but we finally got it together. And you're welcome back anytime.
My pleasure.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
You've been listening to Let's Talk Jiu-Jitsu with Raymond Terrence. Go follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page. Turn on notifications and press that like button. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the mat.